So we have some things to talk about today. Most important to me. Oh, you have to work to do from home? Amazing. We have some things to talk about today. One of the things most important to me is the left's handling, or a lot of left-wing media personalities, independent media voices handling of some recent news that came out about our patron saint, our crusader on the front lines, cutting down wine moms and centrists left and right. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So over the last couple months, with everything that's been transpiring, God Gamer Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been changing up her strategy a little bit, right? So she came, if we remember, let me run down the lore of AOC real quick for everybody who may not be privy to such information. AOC came into Congress back in the 2018 midterm election when she beat out an incumbent Democrat, Joe Crowley, I believe is what his name was. And he was one of the top ranking Democrats, right? Leader Pelosi's right hand, right? Very, very high up. Some may even think that he was going to be the next speaker after this Paleolithic era of politics goes, and Nancy Pelosi rides off into the sunset on her golden steed of cash money from Shell and coal companies. So she beats him, destroys him, crushes him. Like 5 people vote in the election. It's wild. And she comes into Congress riding on the back the new left-wing firebrand, this political newbie, the bartender from the Bronx, comes into Congress out of nowhere, defeats one of the top-ranking Democrats, and is now basically Bernie Sanders' right hand. By all accounts, the leader of the squad, and a progressive firebrand who's popular in some parts of the country, very unpopular in others. Who'd have thunk it? With big policy proposals like the Green New Deal under her belt, she has a lot of eyes looking on her. I don't know if you guys remember, but when she first came out, you couldn't. She was the COVID of her day. You know, you turn on the TV, couldn't see a politician not talking about AOC and or the squad, talking about the big political shake that is her newfound incumbency, right? And with a lot of eyes on her, obviously you'll get a lot of lovers, you'll get a lot of hate, and recently, with her new change up in strategy, with what has transpired in the presidential election, with your boy Bernard Sanders most likely going to lose, she has taken a change in strategy, right? First, it was a very adversarial relationship that she had with the leadership in Congress. You know, very adversarial to Pelosi, very adversarial to fellow Democrats in Congress, who are more centrist-y or moderate-y, sort of, and she had a lot of people worried, right? But they weren't really necessarily worried about losing their jobs. They were kind of worried about a Twitter mob coming for their heads. Wait a second, do you have a spotlight on your face? I have a light. I have a single source light over here, you know, there. See? It's that way. And it's Oh, I had some stuff on my hand. What was on my hand? Here, look. Here's my hand. It's clean again. There you go. Listen, I have plants in my room. You're gonna find dirt. You're gonna find dirt. Okay. Chill. But yeah, I have a light in my room. It's I mean, it gets pretty dark. Usually when I'm streaming, you'll see, my lights in my room are off and I have this one light. It's mostly so I can get pretty good lighting on the side of my face that, hits the camera, the side that matters. It's my head is like the moon, right? The left side of my face is never actually lit up ever. It's pretty wild, It's dark side of the moon over there. It's pretty crazy. But that's not important. So recently, and this has surprised me, but not surprised me in a bad way, which you'll see from these other political commentators. They believe this is a bad thing, or they're very skeptical of it. I think this is a very good thing, actually. If any progressive cares about winning any sort of power and implementing these bold policies that many of us champion, I think we do really need a change in strategy. And that can come in many different forms. And for AOC, this is going to come in the form of breaking with Bernie on some issues when it comes to how to present and package progressive ideology, which is something that I think is great. Honestly, remember, okay, I'm a Bernie bro. Okay, we hate women here. And AOC is absolutely no exception. All right, we hate women here because we like Bernie, and that's the only criteria for hating women. If you recall the debates, all the presidential debates that we've had so far, if you recall all of these debates, if you recall all the questions that were asked, if you went through and went to every single question and took everyone's talking time, I think that Bernie Sanders would be the one who had to answer the most non-policy oriented questions. And what I mean by that, I mean the questions like, what do you say to your followers who say mean things to people on Twitter? Do you think that the country is ready for self-described socialists? These sorts of questions, right? And if you could add up all that time that he spent clarifying his position on what socialism means to him, clarifying his position on this or that meaningless thing, denouncing some follower who told some like centrist lady who said Bernie Sanders is equivalent to her abusive dad because he points, and calling her dumb on Twitter. All of these things that sucked up so much air out of the time that could have been used for talking about the nuance of Medicare for all, because many people in the country are still blissfully unaware of what's actually in the bill. Talking about positions on the Green New Deal and what it can offer for many people. I think he lost so much for having to talk about such meaningless issues as that explaining, like I said, like what socialism means to him. All of these useless things that sucked up so much air, and you can cry, and the like political commentators like Rational National or the Humanist Report or Secular Talk and bitch and moan all they want about how these questions suck, which they do, but the fact that they even have that sort of ammunition is not helping us in the first place, right? I mean, you look back when they talk about Bernie Sanders, how many times can you say, so self-described socialist Bernie Sanders, the self-described socialist, are they ready for a self-described socialist, Venezuela, self-described socialist, and they hammer that point in. I think we can take some steps to understand what is helpful for a movement and what is not. We shouldn't be like the right. We shouldn't be like the centrists or in the moderates, we shouldn't be like them. We should understand and learn from our losses and learn from our wins. We should learn from when we run candidates and when we run ideas, and we should understand why we won or why we lost on this or that. And by all accounts, Bernie Sanders will lose. And we can take what was helpful from him and run with it. And we can take that was things that were unhelpful and drop it. It's all fun and cool and sick and based to run out and call yourself a socialist and put it on. But when you get question after question after question of this or that about socialism or this or that country, where you really want to talk about how your healthcare bill will save people from dying in the streets because they couldn't afford to get their flu checked out because they couldn't afford the copay. This sucks up a lot of the air out of the room. And this is a problem. And this is just one issue that we could speak on. But I think this marks a good reason to introspect about the movement and how we take it, right? I think this is a reasonable idea. Some people disagree. And this all started with this article. Let me bring it up for you. This all started with this article here from Politico. AOC breaks with Bernie on how to lead the left, right? Now, it's important to remember, AOC is her own human being. She's her own human being with very similar goals to Bernie Sanders. I would say almost identical, which is amazing. I think we need someone with Bernie's ideas. I'm going to move my camera down a little bit. I think we need someone with Bernie's ideas. I think we need someone with Bernie's rhetoric. I think we need someone like Bernie, but is more appealing to these moderate types. I think, listen, I'm going to be completely honest with you. We need to hide our power level. This is just true. We need to hide our power level. We need to play nice. Let me get into this article. Congresswoman is declining to back primary challengers, following in her footsteps and working within the system in Congress, right? Like I was saying, it's incredible. It's great to be an activist in Congress. And I absolutely do not fault anyone for it. All the years that Bernie Sanders spent advocating for the policies and ideas that he did are not, I would not say they're wasted, but I feel like it could have been used a little bit better, right? It is great and amazing to see him stand up for human rights. That is appalling to watch the other 99 Senate members not even care to show up for while he gives a heated debate to an empty Senate room, right? It's great to see that, but it didn't get much done. And that's sad to say. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying it is a thing. And I know a lot of people disagree with working within the system. Obviously, there's the little like Dem exit thing that was going on. I'm not sure exactly where I stand on that, but right now, a third party is almost completely unviable and will almost always guarantee a Republican to win because you're just going to split the vote among Democrats. Well, left-leaning people, right? And we can take a look. Soon after her upset victory against a Democratic Party boss in 2018, AOC traveled to St. Louis to prove her victory wasn't a one-off and campaign for Cori Bush, who was similarly taking on a longtime Democratic congresswoman. What I'm asking for you to do is support my sister, Cori Bush, AOC said at a rally. It is important. We just came off this win in New York, but some people were trying to say it's just in one place. Well, it's not just in one place. There are many places in this country where this can go well. I believe even red districts. There's lots of good rhetoric that progressives can pull off to get regular like working class conservatives on board. or Republican voters on board. I do believe this. But it's hard. It's very difficult to do this. Bush lost that race. And what also hurts, this highlights something that apparently they don't want to talk about. What also hurts is losing. It's great to run. It sucks to lose. It just does. I don't want to look at that. What? I'm clicking on things I don't want to click on yet. It hurts to lose. It really does. And when they can talk about, oh, this is just a one-off thing in a plus 60 district, these ideas can't win anywhere else. And then you try and take it somewhere else, and then you lose. It can help reinforce those sorts of ideas. I think it's important to play it safe. At this point in time, with the amount of power that true progressives hold, there isn't much that can be done. There in like legislation, there isn't much that can be done right now. This is just true. What we got? Bernie Sanders. We have Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. We have Rokana. There's another one that I'm forgetting. Her name is weird. I can't remember it right now. But we have a good amount of very progressive members in Congress. Very amazing members in Congress. But the power they hold collectively is very small. I think lots of people forget what country we live in, all right? You want to talk about Sweden, you want to talk about Denmark. That's great. And those are, for what they do, those are great countries, right? But we don't live there. And I think people really forget that we're playing politics here. It's still a game. And it's a game of power. And for progressives to win right now, we have to play the game. It's not one of those games that you can only win by not playing. You don't play and nothing happens. Well, something happens. Society crumbles. Of the half a dozen incumbent primary challengers and Justice Democrats is backing in this cycle, AOC has endorsed just two. Neither are particularly a risky move, right? But I think this is a good calculation. I mean, the more ammo you give them to say, oh, look at all these members that she endorsed and all of them lost, or this many lost, or that many lost. If you take it easy for right now, right? Because our positions are still very delicate. We would love to just come in, kick the door off the hinges in Mitch McConnell's and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi's offices, kick them down and judo chop them out of their desks and roundhouse kick the desk out of the window and be like, I want Medicare for all on the table this week, and it's happening. And they go, yes, ma'am. And then, we get it passed and everyone cheers and we crack champagne bottles over each other's skulls. That would be fun. That would be amazing, but it's not going to happen. It's just not. It's going to be very hard. And I don't think we should delude ourselves in believing that this fight is going to be much easier than it is. So I think if these two members win and AOC can get them on their side, she starts off by building a decent coalition, right? She has her other three members. She has Rokana. She has a couple other very progressive members in Congress. Obviously, Bernie. She can get two more in there and take her in for this block. And hopefully, over time, she can build a block in the Senate, in the House, to help move some legislation, muscle some people in your way, get some amendments and some bills, push through some policy that, while not as progressive as we would like, can really get some wins under our belt, which is exactly what we need, which are wins. We need wins. We need to prove that our ideas can win. It's not good when many people can say, oh, you can't win this, you can't win that. How are we supposed to trust you? How are you supposed to say your ideas are this popular when you can't get anything done? And like I said, it would be great to stand up against the system and be against them at every single push. But when we have article after article reading it, talking about how, oh, they're so divisive, oh, they're so terrible, they're so mean, they're so angry, look at the way he points, it's so disheartening, you know. You've got to play the game. You have to play politics. You just do. This is how, and that's how it works. Obviously, we can get some things done by not, but there are many things, but we close many doors to us, sadly. And this talks about another thing that they want to talk about. There's an important other thing in this article, and we can move on. AOC's endorsement moves. AOC endorsement moves are not a fluke, but part of a larger change over the past several months. After her disruptive, burn her down early months in Congress, AOC Ocasio-Cortez, who colleagues say is often conflict aversive in person, has increasingly been trying to work within the system. She is building coalitions with fellow Democratic members and picking her fights more selectively. I think this is incredibly smart. Like I said, it's amazing. It's great to see. Like a couple people in Congress calling people this or that. And obviously we're going to get bad mouth. Obviously they're going to take shots at us. We're politically opposed. That's how it works. But I think being more selective in our fights and channeling more political energy instead of a wide-spreading shotgun on the Democratic establishment, which we'd love to do. They're bad, and we shouldn't stop that. To channel it to be more focused, to take shots at things that are much more doable right now. We try to imagine ourselves as this like big, massive block that can get so many things done. It's very hard to do that. And hopefully this election cycle will show a lot of people. Hopefully it won't make people dismayed, as in we can't do anything. I think Bernie got very far here, and he did so much that we should not drop it here, but we should take it forward and understand why we lose, understand what we win, and how to get more wins under our belt. Even if those wins are much smaller, they can easily build up into something that we can take and run with, right? And I think building coalitions is still very important. I'm sorry, but you need friends in Congress. You just do. You need friends in Congress. You really do, to get things done. That's just how it works. You have to play the game. You have to play politics with them. You have to, kiss some boots. That's just how it works, especially when you're a first-year congressperson, especially when you're such, politically outside as we are, right? We're politically radical, technically. So we have to do what we can to gain, sustain, and grow our the power that we have. Like I said, the changes have divided her supporters, some lamenting she's been co-opted in short order by the system, others asserting she's offering the left a more viable path towards sustainable power, which is very important, sustainable power. I think what she's doing is great. People are going insane. They're losing their minds right now. They're losing their minds. People are acting like AOC is like a double agent, and she's actually a Nancy Pelosi plant who has come to delude the left into believing that they have a path forward, while actually she's being paid under the table to destroy us from the inside out. And it's the great master plan to finally put AOC, to finally put the left and in its little box in the corner and relegate us to irrelevancy for the rest of human existence, right? This is not true. Nothing that AOC believes has changed. If you see on when they're talking about the stimulus bill that came out, and the fact that it was large part just a corporate bailout and a massive Republican slush fund that they gifted to their buddies, trillions of dollars just gifted away to corporations to spend however they want, while many people in the working class get about $1,200, give or take. What are you going to do? right? This is a genuine question. I want you to stop and ask yourself just for one moment. If you're very against that, which I am myself, what are you going to do about it? What? What are you going to do? Give a fiery speech on the House floor about how this is terrible and we're shorting the American people what they're due? Amazing. Great. No one in Congress cares. The people who actually make the votes on it, they don't care. They don't care. They're bad people and they don't care. This you forget, right? Everyone wants to talk about everyone that we're up against. We are up against a lot, and we're relatively quite small. We do not hold a majority of power. We do not hold a plurality of power. We hold a very small minority of power, which sometimes we can use to influence policy in this or that way. But it's going to be relatively small. We don't have that much power. We really don't. We really don't. And it's important to get some wins under our belt. And I think this is a more viable path to do it. I'm not here for like the pragmatism memes. Like, oh, I'm going to do this, but more pragmatically, when they actually just don't do anything, right? Pushing for small improvements at first is going to do a lot for helping us get our movement off the ground, which it's a grassroots movement, but sadly it's still on the ground. It really is, you know? I think we showed a lot of strength in this election cycle, but now we need to move that into it being actual political power, which is a much harder thing to do. Gone are her plans for a corporate free caucus modeled on the uncompromising tactics of the Conservative Freedom Caucus. And don't look at that, okay? The goal then was to force leadership to hand to go further left. After starting some high-profile fights with Speaker Nancy Pelosi and tweaking Democratic colleagues on Twitter early in her tenure, AOC has gone more conciliatory towards other House Democrats. In February, she dubbed Pelosi "Mama Bear of the Democratic Party." Right. And you'll see a lot of people harping on this, her Mama Bear quote. I don't care. I don't care about this Mama Bear quote at all. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah, and you know it doesn't mean anything because she's just playing politics. I think it's kind of a smart move, right? We don't like Pelosi that much. We as progressives, we just don't, right? And that's okay. That's fine. We want Pelosi out. That's great. But when we have people out there whose literal sexual kink is being kicked and spit on by the Democratic Party and being having their vote whipped every single time, no matter what's going on, no matter what corporate bailout it is, no matter how contrary it is to their values, no matter how many times they bow to the Republican Party, no matter what, their kink is still to be a Democrat through and through, no matter what. The people with Proud Democrat in their Twitter profiles and who care about supporting any candidate with a D next to their name before they hold any political prescriptions about the world. This is true. And those people suck dearly. Deeply do they suck, and I do not like them. They will destroy this country if we let them, which we shouldn't. But they hold a lot of power. And the politicians that they support hold a lot of power. So we have to break that. We really have to break that. But I think we break that with one chip at a time right now. Because our chisel for this boulder of a project is very small at the moment. We have to translate this into actual political power. And by playing politics, that's one way that we could do it. And I think her building a sort of coalition that is less divisive to the Democratic establishment, at least in verbiage, is a good thing because it will suck a lot less of the air out of the room when she wants to talk about things like the Green New Deal, right? Like I said, none of her policy positions have changed. It's just her tactic for getting them in. And we can talk about this a little later. The Democratic Party coalition. Democratic Party is a party of coalitions, not a cult, said James Carville. We all remember James Carville, this absolute buffoon. We hate him. He's really dumb. He was anti Barack Obama back in 2008. I've observed her. I think she's really talented, that she's really smart. Maybe if she is, I don't speak for her, coming to the conclusion that she wants to be a part of the Democratic coalition. This is amazing. This is great. Lots of people will tell you that this is bad. This is a bad sign that James Carville is saying things like this. I think that this is great. Let me tell you, right? I said earlier, we need to hide our power level. We do. We need to hide how progressive we are. We need to hide our disdain for them, how much we hate them and don't want them to be in power, how much we want to kick them out of their office and ban them from ever serving in politics ever again, relegating them to the back page of a history book, never to be seen again, so we can take this country in a much better direction. We would love that. This is our goal. This is the fight we have, all right? We're chopping off heads in Minecraft. But we have to play the game. This is amazing. You know how dumb James Carville is? He's an idiot. He's really dumb. He's a conservative Democrat who has no political intuition whatsoever. He's crazy, right? And James Carville is now saying that he's impressed by AOC is because his politics is aesthetic. He does not hold any true, real ideas about the world. You ask him some like ideas, he'll give you some like ephemeral sort of like things you can't touch about how things need to feel normal and the heart of the nation and all this sort of like plateau garbage rhetoric, garbage. And these are the sorts of people that we need to win over, or at least fool hard enough to think that we are their friends. We're not their friends. They're not our friends. They're not our friends. We don't like these people. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? But we need to fool them into believing we are. We need to make them our friends. Keep your enemies close. I think this is a very smart move. No matter what, people like Carville, people like Chuck Todd, people like Joe Scarborough putting out negative articles on us because we don't ascribe to their sort of idea of what a Democrat should be, or like how policy should or should not get pushed. We could easily avoid this sort of negative information, this sort of negative press, by playing the same game, but with different ends. Remind you, if you go on and talk to just like these regular like wine mom like self-identified Democrats, who's like, you know, whose personality trait is being a Democrat on Twitter, and you ask them what they hate so much about Trump, I'm telling you, 6 out of the 10 things that they give you that they don't like about Trump are going to be like some things about like his personality or the words he uses, or like some stuff like that, right? It's not going to be most of it isn't going to be anything serious, because let me remind you, their politics are aesthetic. They care about what feels right instead of what is right, because most of these people don't have any sort of coherent political ideology that they adhere to, right? That's why they latch on to some party to feel like they actually believe in something. I promise you, if Trump was like, this is why I'm more worried about people like Mike Pence, because Pence wouldn't be hated like this. Pence would have like a 56% approval rating right now, right? Mild-mannered, religious bigot who can keep his name out of out of articles while slowly worsening the country bit by bit, chipping away at what democracy and political institutions that we have to keep people from falling into destitute poverty that we have left in this country. And it's effective. It is. Let me remind you, half the things that they have to say that are terrible about Trump are just he's mean. Look at how he stands funny. I don't like that word he used. He doesn't seem very kind. Just garbage like that. So that's why I don't want Pence to be president, because he's way more politically savvy than Trump could ever even imagine to be. And he could actually start to win people over because his politics is much more savory to the average American liberal. Even Neera Tanden, we can go back here, right? Even Neera Tanden, president of the liberal think tank and Center of American Progress. Remind you, Center of American Progress is the ones that's been running hit piece after hit piece and trying to get people to cast Bernie Sanders out of politics like a leper ever since he started his campaign. They don't like him. They called this a sign of leadership. And even this slight praise from such garbage humans that us on the progressives feel like they are can get us very far. It gets us political brownie points. Cha-ching, cha-ching. All I see are dollar signs, my boy. Just racking them in. Just rolling them in, right? Because we can make friends with these people and fool them into believing that we actually are their friends. We're not. And nothing about AOC has changed, right? It's just a change in strategy. And she changed a lot of the people in her team to reflect this. A lot of the outspoken people who sucked up a lot of the air for their correct, spicy, and based takes have been cast to the side. Not because we disagree with them, but because it's not beneficial to us. It's great to have it out there. It's great. But we're not in the position to spend that sort of political capital thinking about these, having people talk about these sort of things and not our policies. Politico. Indeed, Politico. See it? It's right up here. Hecka Politico. Still, some left-wing supporters have been less enamored with AOC's evolution. Many were reluctant to speak publicly, however, given her stature as the fact that Sanders' expected loss makes her likely to air his movement, which I think is good. Look at this person. What's this tweet? Let's see. AOC's response comes from being in the house, not from being woke or whatever. If NYT asked Ro Khanna the same thing, you would have gotten easily the same exact answer. This is what I'm saying. We can be in the house. We're just going to have to change our politics. We're just going to have to. So this is important to understand. She hired some people from some way more centrist-y campaigns, and we can move on to some things that some other people says. Now, this is the Humanist Report. I watch the Humanist Report every now and again. I thought this was an absolutely terrible video. This is literally just fear-mongering. Listen to this. We can listen to part of this.
Since day one, she came on my show, I interviewed her, and then when she won, I had tears in my eyes because I truly believe that maybe that was the beginning of a new era in American politics. Maybe the left finally would actually be able to obtain power and affect change. But some of what AOC has been doing lately, it flies in the face of reason. What she's doing doesn't make sense. She's making political calculations that are very obviously antithetical to what the left wants, right?
This is very untrue. Like I said, we have to make friends in Congress. We just do. We don't hold the power. We live in a center-right country, especially when we're talking about electoral politics. You're right. You are right. I'm always right. And everyone else is cringy. We live in a that's like basically center right country, right? Where these sorts of things, where progressives go to die, right? And progressive ideas go to die. We've been stagnating for a couple of decades now politically, and it's been pretty bad. And they hold most all of the power. We need to make friends with them. We need to smell like centrists while doing progressive work. You're right-handed, bro. You know what's weird is that I'm right-handed, but I can't snap with my right. Here's me. Listen, I don't. Where's my pencil? I don't have a pencil up here. I have a pencil up here. I can't show you, but I'm right-handed, right? I write with my right, but I can't snap. Very bad at snapping with my right. Very good at snapping with my left. It's so weird. I don't get it. Anyways, we need to make friends. And I think we should change up our strategy. I think one thing that we could do, hide our power level. Don't call ourselves socialists. Don't do it. It's not good. It sucks up way too much air in the room. It's great. It's based. It's sick. It's cool. Fresh and funky and also amazing. But it's not helpful. It's just not helpful. There is nothing to gain there. Literally nothing to gain. There's no massive socialist vote in the country when it comes to people who actually vote on people who are called socialists. And there are lots of people to lose and turn off due to whatever they believe about the word socialist. It's just kind of a dirty word. We still live in America, post-Red Scare America. I'm sorry. This is true. And that's something we can take and run with.
Now, I don't believe that we should tear down all of our allies. I think that we definitely need to hold them accountable. But what I do want people to understand is that when red flags present themselves very clearly to us, we have to take those red flags seriously, even if it might make us feel uncomfortable to do so.
Now, none of this is a red flag, right? It's hard to make friends in Congress while you're actively trying to get them ousted from Congress. This is hard to do. This is hard to do. That's a hard line to walk. And so by pushing that back and pushing for more easy candidates to get into Congress to build a smaller but more sustainable coalition is going to be a better idea in the short term. You're looking at very long-term goals. I don't think Pelosi is going anywhere right now. I really don't think that's true. And he's going to go over a part of this article.
Is someone who we desperately need in Congress. Based on this Politico article, they're very serious. And I've seen some of this. And, I don't know if I should bring this up as an issue. Namely, one of them is her unwillingness to endorse Cori Bush. Cori Bush, as you all know, is someone who we desperately need in Congress. AOC
also, this is a bad picture of Cori Bush.
Enthusiastically endorsed her back in 2018, and now she's nowhere to be found. So we're going to read this article from Alex Thompson and Holly Otterbein of Politico, who write, soon after her upset primary victory against the Democratic Party boss in 2018, Alexandria...
We read part of this. We want to go on what he has to say about it.
Cori Bush, he is replacing the more firebrand members of her staff with establishment-approved choices, if you will. Embarrassing. And here's the thing. You have to acknowledge that the Democratic Party, AOC, speaking directly to her, they are not your ally, they are your enemy.
This is not something that she does not understand. She knows that they're their enemy. You think her, I don't know. I don't get, maybe they think that her political ideology has just changed just suddenly. I mean, until that happens, until she shows that she's changed some policy positions, for the worst, as in backs off of Medicare for all, or backs off the Green New Deal, instead of pushing for smaller reform that can that are easier wins to get under your belt. I think that's great. I don't know if they think that that's pushing back. I think we need to have a much more reasonable list of short-term goals that we can get to prove people that we can win. Even if they're small wins, a win is a win, and that's very good for us. It's hard to win on the Green New Deal in Congress. That's hard to do. You could probably win in I don't know, if it came to a statewide, countrywide vote, maybe on Medicare for all, if it was a statewide vote or something, maybe if we could do something like that in the UK, like they did for Brexit, and maybe if we could do that, maybe. But for for Congress, which is, for one, still Republican controlled, that's a very hard thing to do. I think that could be a very good long-term goal. But in short-term goals, we could do a lot that I think we can miss, right? We shouldn't miss the forest for the trees.
If somebody is punching you in the chest while another person is stabbing you, they're both bad. One may be causing more harm to you objectively than the other, but the person who's punching you still isn't your ally. They're your enemy, and they're hurting you actively. So trying to align with the corporate
Yes, they are.
isn't going to help you get progressive policies passed. And now I'm not saying that she is capitulating when it comes to policy, but you've got to have the correct strategy if you actually want those policies codified into law. To try to work with Democrats who are very openly corrupt corporatists, to call Nancy Pelosi mama bear of the Democratic Party.
Well, my question to him would be, what do you do? Listen, I said this before. Gotta go? No problem. See you later, bud. What do you do? What are you gonna do? If she can't work within the system whatsoever and should dodge it at all points in time like the plague, what is she going to do? What, just sit in, like I said, like sit in Congress and make fiery speeches to an empty house house building? Is that it? Is that all her politics is supposed to be until we oust every single centrist and moderate candidate in the Democratic Party, and then finally our plan snaps into action? Like, I think there are much smaller things that we can get done in the terrible position that we're in. I think that's something that we shouldn't miss on. I think we'd be doing a disservice to the country if we were not looking for those policies that we can push for that are much smaller, but still help people, right? They still help people. Bernie Sanders wasn't able to change the stimulus package bill to take that $4 trillion that was just handed over to shareholders to spend however they want in their company, right? He couldn't change that, but he could help freelance workers. He could help unemployed workers. He could help a lot of other people struggling. He can't do everything, but he can do these smaller things, and that's amazing. He helped countless numbers of people who maybe without his help would have been in financial destitute in this pandemic. You know, they still may be in a bad position, but at least they're in a better position since he decided to go for a smaller policy. And I don't think that should be something that should be missed at all. And I think this sort of strategy is going to help us get there. Smaller wins, more smaller wins instead of less risky, bigger wins, easier wins that we can get many of, racking up very quickly relative to, how fast Congress moves, which is at a snail's pace. These are good things. And I don't think that this helps. I don't think that this idea that we can't work within the party yet helps, because there's no other thing that we can do. There's nothing else we can do. We can protest with the Sunrise Movement in Pelosi's room as much as we want, but she doesn't care. She just doesn't care, which is terrible. But there's more things that we can do to get actual progressive policy pushed, even if it's on a smaller scale.
Party, you're embarrassing yourself.
That was a disgusting sound.
And this leads to people, I think, rightfully thinking you were co-opted in a number of ways. Maybe they've managed to bully.
This is not a rightful thing. This is not rightful ideology to push that she's been co-opted. Like I said, this is just fear mongering. Nothing about AOC has changed. Nothing at all.
Colt said James Carville, a top strategist for Bill Clinton's 1992 campaign and vocal critic of Sanders during the primary.
Here goes this.
Her, and I think she's really talented. Wait, James Carville is saying this? That's weird. That she's really smart. Maybe she is. I don't speak for her. Coming to the conclusion that she wants to be part of the coalition. There it is. There it is. So they probably had a talk with her. Look, I get that you support all these progressive.
No, they probably didn't. They probably didn't. I think she's smart enough. I think this is a great political calculation, right? Once again, you have to play the game. You have to play the game. You just can't do it without it.
Policies, but coming to Congress, protesting with the Sunrise Movement in the office of Nancy Pelosi, that's just not really how we do things here in D.C. And she said it herself. There's a lot of corporate voices in your ear, a lot of voices that want you to acquiesce, that will put pressure on you to bend you and ultimately break you. And it seems like that's the indication that we're getting, that the establishment broke AOC. I think she probably still believes in all the policies she came to Congress believing in. But what this article tells us is that she has been deluded into thinking that working with the establishment is the only way forward. Like, there were people quoted in this article saying, oh, this is a savvy move. No, it's not. You can't work with the enemy and expect to accomplish change because they're just going to placate you. They don't care about.
I don't know what sort of change that he's talking about. Because for me, change, small changes, can even help. Like what Bernie did, I don't. By working with that framework, we would have to believe that what Bernie did with the stimulus bill would be useless, meaningless pushes that help millions of people, right? We can still help millions. We can still do our jobs as progressives, which is use the government as a tool to help those who are most in need in this country. And we're going to have to work within the system to get it done. We just can't. We can't do anything else. A third party is just, they've forced a third party run to be politically just completely unviable. And they control all the power. Until we reach enough power to truly challenge them, all we can do is push them and pull them in the right direction in small increments as far as we can go. Inches, we should take inches where we can get them, right? And inches will over time add up.
Who was lost from AOC.
He's talking very slow.
Chakrabarty was a firebrand on the Hill. After Ocasio-Cortez's victory in November 2018, he earned enemies in the Democratic caucus by declaring, quote, "We got a primary, folks." They were livid in June when he called some members, quote, "New Southern Democrats." Ocasio-Cortez replaced him with legislative director Ariel Ekblad, who joined her office in January 2019 after working for Senator Kamala Harris. So 2 major hires here. One worked for Hickenlooper and Beto O'Rourke. The other one worked for Kamala Harris. And in the process, replaced 2 incredibly powerful left-wing voices in Corbin Trent and Shloika Chakrabarty.
I'd love to see these 2 voices still speaking out against what's wrong in this country. But for this strategy to work, like I said, we're going to have to fool them into believing that we're their friends. We're just going to have to. We're going to have to make some friends. And this is going to be important for winning them over, for when push comes to shove, and when their votes actually matter for what's going to get done, how many people we can pull over to actually help people in small increments. It sucks. I'd love to be in the position where we could slap Medicare for all down in Congress and with a Democratic president, and maybe like a 50-50 in the Senate to finally get it done. But right now that'd be very hard, especially with having no friends.
So,
but like I'd love to see them do more in politics. I'd love to see them do more. But for building a small but powerful coalition in the short term is going to need them to not make so much noise. Is a very delicate tuning process that has to be done. And while it's great to see it, it's a lot of noise. And I think it's a lot of white noise that drowns out a lot of time that we can use to talk about way more important things. You know, when I see AOC, listen, all right, listen. When I see AOC or Bernie Sanders brought onto a for an interview on MSNBC or CNN or CBS or something, when I see them called in or they're sitting in with one of the reporters, one second. I want to see them talk about actual things that matter, right? I want to see them talk about their policies. I want to see them talk about some things that they're working on right now to actually help people. I don't want to see them sit there for 5 minutes of their 8-minute and 32-second interview talking about how and why what their correspondent said and how that's actually not super divisive and like denouncing parts of it and having and believing in some of it and having to do some like rhetoric dance around to try and make you feel like it wasn't like that much of an attack, but while saying it's an attack and saying it's not an attack at the same time. This is not important. This doesn't help us, right? It doesn't help us. It doesn't help us. Can you imagine? We've seen interviews like that. It does not help. Can you imagine all the time that we've lost talking about such meaningless things that they care about? That they care about pushing, that we could have been using to talk about actual policy to help human beings dying in this country. And that's just how they play the game. So we're going to have to play it too, but use it to our own advantage. this is basically all I have to say on this. Politics in the United States is pretty garbage right now. And being a progressive is very hard at the current moment. That being said, I think with the power that we do have and the power that we can achievably get in the next 5 years, 10 years is going to be very important to where the progressive movement goes and how far we can take this to change people's lives in this country. I think it's very important that we understand why we win, we understand why we lose, and how we take this and manifest it into actual victories and political power in Congress to leverage those who we describe as our enemies to actually get things done. I think this is going to be very important. Communists cum dumpster. Thank you, buddy, for the follow. I really appreciate that, actually. Thank you so much. This is going to be incredibly important. And I don't think this sort of like fear-based doomsday sort of idea of how anyone who isn't perfectly attacking the Democratic establishment at every step and every turn means that they've somehow been co-opted by Nancy Pelosi and sucks the polish off her toes in her office in off hours. I just think this is not something that we should be doing. I think this is a very good political move, and I think we're going to see the fruits of her labor in due time. And I'm glad that we have AOC.